Hi, I wanted to welcome you to the Divorce Planning Podcast. I'm Carri Goldring, and I'm in the mortgage business, and I do planning pre-divorce for people who are either going to refinance their home, do an equity buyout, or plan to purchase a new home and make sure that everything in the divorce decree is worded properly and the numbers in the planning is taken care of so that you can go through the underwriting process smoothly. And I would like to introduce you to other people who are interested in the divorce planning process so you can get a real education of what's involved. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, today I have with me Lauren Thompson, who's with Goosehead Insurance, who I recommend often when working on mortgages and people need new insurance. And I asked her to join us because I'm getting so many phone calls lately about people who want to stay on the mortgage even though they're moving out of the home to help the spouse who's staying in the house with that low interest rate and low payment. And then there's some red flags that people need to be aware of when they do that. And I thought Lauren could explain from an insurance standpoint what happened. So Lauren, welcome and thank you for being here.
Yes, Carri, thank you so much for having me on here. Love working with you and your whole group. It's always so much fun. Thank you for sure having me, be here and, help educate you and your clients. That's what we're here to do.
Perfect, which is great. So here's my first scenario.
Okay.
Spouse one, spouse two, they own the home together. They're on the mortgage debt together, getting divorced. One of them's moving out, but they don't want to refinance because they have this great, awesome interest rate, low payment. What happens with insurance, or what should happen? Where's my pros and cons?
So from the insurance, when you are looking at your normal policy, it will tell you, who is the name insured on the policy. When it comes to spouses, typically both of them are on there because you get rated together and everything goes into play there. Now, when you're going through a divorce and one's going to move out because let's face it, they probably don't want to be around each other, which makes sense.
Right.
So maybe they're going to move out and they're going to go rent an apartment or something until they can decide what their next move is going to be. At that point, what they would want to do is they would want to remove their name as the name insured on the policy. But at that point, they're going to be an additional interest. They still have interest in the mortgage. The mortgage hasn't changed. The loan agreement hasn't changed. Nothing there has changed. So They for sure want to still be listed as additional interest in that policy. So if something were to happen to that house, they know.
Okay. And then what if in that scenario, someone either, and maybe these are two different topics, she'll let me know. Someone either slips and falls and sues, or they have a big flood or fire, and now someone's making an insurance claim.
At that point then, and that's why it would be best to move the name to the additional interest because the name insured then is the one who is going to file the claims.
Okay.
So it's solely on them. The additional interest, they are just another name on there. It could be, same thing as like a non-occupying, person that's on a loan. That kind of situation. It's like that.
Okay. So I own this home with my soon-to-be ex-spouse. Being the good person and, not making anyone refinance. I still have ownership in the house. There's a fire. My ex-spouse who lives there is doing nothing. Or someone is suing us because they slipped and fell and they're doing nothing. Is anything in my control, or am I just waiting?
Well, if you're still the name insured then you also have the power of that policy. So you can file claims and you can go and do what you need to do.
If I'm additional insured, you're saying?
If you're still living in the home, are you still living in the home?
Nope, I'm
Not living in the home. Then It is going to be up to the husband
or the
or
wife or what have you.
or the wife or
Okay.
whoever.
So
Because
that's my
they,
downfall of being the good guy, so to speak,
correct,
is I'm losing some control if God forbid something terrible happened. Um,
correct.
and I could still, because I'm the additional insured, I could still get an apartment or buy another house and get other insurance from that perspective.
Right. At that point, you would get, renter's insurance or something like that, where you are the name insured on that policy. Whereas, with the other home, you're just additional interest because you are
Okay.
on that loan.
Now, if I do have a fire and I do make a claim and I'm the one living in the house and I'm the one insured, um, and you guys send me a check to do repairs, is it just made payable to me or is it me and the additional insured?
It would be made just to the name insured is what I believe is what they do, is they send it
Okay.
to the name insured on the policy.
So I don't, so what I was thinking before is that we would have to go to the ex-spouse, get them to sign the check. What if they said they want money, but you're not thinking that's the case?
Yeah, if it's
Additional
something like
insured.
that, I mean, obviously things could get dragged out, and at that point, that's probably going into, small claims or something against them because that's, money wise. From my standpoint, I don't have a lot of hands in the claims department, so I don't have huge knowledge on how everything comes down from there. That is a whole ball game
Hmm.
of
Yeah, that's my
things.
biggest worry when people aren't doing, you know, clean cut, so to speak, get out, move on, do your own thing, is what if this check came to both parties and they're like, well, the repairs were 20 grand and you got a check for 40 grand and I
And
want
what
half
happens
of
to the
the
money?
other
Right.
20. I know you were gonna fix up your kitchen, but or put in really expensive carpet. I don't think you should do that. I could see where things get a little bit tricky.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely not like a black and white situation as we all wish it was. I'm sure you feel the same
Right.
way with mortgages. You wish it was black and white, but we've got all these gray areas that we're navigating.
Right.
So
And
that's for sure why they always say that, remove yourself as the name insured and to, put yourself as the additional interest because then you still have ownership in that home. And that's
right.
very
Now,
important.
what if you stayed on the mortgage because you wanted this lower interest rate,
Mhm.
but you deeded the home over, so now you have no ownership? How does that change things?
Hmm. You deeded it over.
So I'm going to stay in my house. I'm going to live there. My spouse did a quit claim deed deeding the home to just me, but agreed to stay on the mortgage note with me so I don't have to refinance.
Then he would be the additional interest because
Again,
he still
okay.
has interest in the property.
No, he has no interest in the
No, no, he
property.
doesn't have interest in the property, but he's on the deed,
Not on the deed, only on the mortgage
on
documents.
the mortgage, on the
Only responsible for the debt. And I believe because he's
um,
on the mortgage stuff, he has to be named on the insurance policy, right?
correct.
You would put them on the insurance policy.
He- Yes, because they're on the loan.
Right. And they wouldn't be
Well,
an additional
mm,
insured, they would just be on the policy.
as a non-occupying
Person
person.
now. So something
Mhm.
would have to be changed because now they're no longer the owner and they're no longer occupying, so something needs to be changed. I
Yep.
did a I did a refinance yesterday where we didn't have a chance to see the current homeowner's insurance policy until the very, very last second. And my lady that I was refinancing, the current mortgage was only in her spouse's name. And when we got the insurance policy, it was only in the spouse's name. So she, as a wife and living in that home, was never, ever, ever on the insurance policy.
And she should have been,
She should have been. That was a
she should have been.
shocker. And had no clue. So that hard part is people can take you off and put you on, right? All the time. Like if I'm the homeowner and I'm talking to the insurance company and I'm like, I want this person to be additionally insured, I can call back later and say, take them off.
And you could.
Yeah, see, those are the things that scare me.
But and definitely from an insurance standpoint, though, I'm the person asking, why are we doing that? What's the reason? Because if you're trying to do this because you think this is how you're supposed to do it, I might be like, no, 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 we need to do it this way. So you're protected, they're protected, everyone's protected, the mortgage is protected, everyone's protected. We want to make sure that we're not leaving a huge part out that could become an issue. We
Right, I
don't want
wonder
it to
about the
become an issue.
malicious,
Right.
sometimes in the divorce cases, I do have the malicious ex-spouse. I
Mm-hmm.
always just wonder, they'd be like, oh, we're divorced, take them off. And then that really shouldn't have happened.
Right.
Yeah, it gets scary. So what else can you teach me that I'm not thinking about?
I have in my cons and risk for the claim impact on both parties. I do have that any claim filed affects loss history for all name insureds, not just the occupant. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to, for sure the claims. I believe when they put it as the additional interest, the spouse is moving out still has interest. That is why we want it not as a name insured because now when you're the name insured, that loss is directly associated with your name for the next 5 years.
But if you're
Um,
additional insured, it isn't, or it still is?
correct. It is not
Okay.
only the name insured.
All right. So that's kind of a good protection.
Yeah, because it says, if occupancy status is not properly disclosed, there coverage disputes, that will
Right.
change a lot of things.
So if no one's making changes and they should make changes, and then there's a claim and you find out someone was listed as an occupant and they're not, or vice versa, there's reason to claim. Like, I wonder what would happen with my lady that closed last night if there was a claim and she wasn't even on the insurance policy.
It wouldn't be in her name.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. Right? I mean, I guess it's good that it wouldn't be in her name as long as everything was still covered. He moved out, months ago, and here she's living in this house. She was awarded the home in divorce, but we didn't transfer the deed yet or do anything until yesterday.
So she
And
wouldn't have been covered in the instance if the
cause
house
of
were to burn
fire.
down. You're right. She wouldn't have been covered then.
Yeah, that's so scary. That's why I like people to just separate and be in charge of their own destiny because it's so
Exactly.
hard to depend on another person, let alone someone that you're divorced from, right?
Right. There's obviously been reasons as to why we've gotten to this point,
Right.
so fresh slates are always the best. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to because when it comes to insurance, that could really affect, and it's going to affect your rates for the next 5 years if something were to happen and things are
Right.
not properly on the, policy as it should be. And say something were to happen and you no longer live there, but you're a name insured, that's following you for 5 years and now affects your rates.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always all these rocks to uncover for.
You're
I feel
right.
I feel bad for all these, and I know I went through it on my own divorce too, but every little issue has like 1,000 legs attached to it. There's
Yes.
nothing simple.
No, it's like you're like, okay, we got this one down, and then you flip the next rock and you're like, oh, we have this now. And then we just continue to go down this path of
Right.
making sure
So
we've gotten all the correct info.
so scary, so overwhelming. Yeah, it's hard. Anything else that you can think of that people listening to this would want to know about insurance?
So what I would say, the strongest recommendation I'm going to say when it comes to divorce and moving out. The plainest terms I can put it is if you're occupying in the house still, you want to be a name insured. If you're not occupying the house anymore, you want to be an additional interest, or if, you can be removed completely if they're refinancing, right? Which we know that.
Right. And if they're off the deed, off the new mortgage, everything, just get
Right.
off that policy.
Yup, yup. Or if they moved out, then they want to, either get a renter's policy or obtain new insurance for their house. Um, and that helps too is when you're moving, a lot of people don't know this, but if you're on a home mortgage, right, and say for instance you move out, you go and you're living at this apartment. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm not going to get, an insurance policy to cover myself because I'm only going to be here 6 months or,
Right.
whatever the
Right. You
case
hear
may
that a
be."
lot.
Right, you could be, you never know. And then it comes to, all right, now I'm buying my home, right? I'm getting into my home and I need insurance. Well, now at this point, you've created a lapse. And
Mm.
now you've had a lapse in insurance coverage, it's kind of like a little red flag, but it's not super big and scary as it could be. Um, and when you have a lapse, then your insurance premium is going to go up because they're going to say, well, why haven't you had
Right.
insurance the last year? Like, what happened?
Right. That reminds me of someone who goes to live with their parents for a while and then they need,
Yep,
to get 6 months of spousal support and child support before they can qualify. And now all of a sudden they're going to
exactly. And they
buy.
should be having a renter's policy to live at their parents' house, whether it be just to cover, 20 to 30,000 of personal property. It's
And it
just
would save
something.
them money in the end.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Correct.
And then the other thing that I had learned from you, not necessarily divorce related, I'm not sure if this still is the same, but you had told me that the year of your roof was a big thing. Can you talk about that for a minute? Just to kind of get off
Oh
topic, but I
man.
think it's interesting.
Roofs. Wow. Those are very fun, let me tell you. Um, First and foremost, and I'll tell you this little story. So my parents, they live on 10 acres, okay? So and I was talking to them and I said, "Well, funny enough, not all carriers will take your home because you're on over 5 acres of land."
Right.
And they were like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I know it's wild, but some carriers, they just prefer to have a smaller land because there's less liability, at that standpoint." And they were talking about it, and I said, "Well, when was your roof last replaced?" And they were like, "Oh, I'm not sure. It hasn't been done in a while." And I'm like, "Okay, you need to get that done because, their rate was super high. It was about that 20-year mark. And at some point, some carriers won't even take that roof anymore. They're like, no, it needs to be
Right.
replaced."
I remember
And
it was a big deal when you took over my insurance. That was a big like money saver. How old was the roof?
right. And, so I had told them, I said, "Well, you go get that roof." And so they did it. And I said, a couple months had gone by and I said, "Did you update your insurance agent on this roof yet?" And they go, "Well, why would we do that?" I'm like, "Because it's going to save you money." And they
Right.
ended up bringing their insurance down. I think they said that they got a check back for like 1100.
So it's a big deal.
It is a huge deal when it comes to roofs. We live in Michigan. You get the snow, you get the hail, you get the this, you get the that, all the wind and
Today
this,
the
you
wind,
know,
right?
they get a lot of abuse. And, so carriers, they're sticklers on roofs in Michigan. Now you go to other states and they care about the coastal stuff. Like that's where they're sticklers. But in Michigan,
We're all
roofs.
about the roof.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's a good tidbit that a lot of people just don't know that I think is really important. And
And,
roofers
like,
don't know to
and
say something, and why
Oh,
would they, right?
right. Right. And roofs, those are, for sure something. And a lot of things I'll see too, for instance, because I'm the one that's stalking all these homes on Zillow and Realtor and everything else, getting all the information on the houses, making sure they all match. And
Right.
like sometimes I'll see new roof. What does that mean? What is a new roof? You
Right.
know, to each person, that could be, oh, a new roof is 7 years ago, or it could be 2 years ago.
That's a good
That,
point. It could
and
be half the roof too, right? They replaced part of the roof with like
right,
this
it could be
addition or
part of it, or was it a complete tear off? All those things are super important. So for sure, for any buyer that's buying a house, they want to know that roof. And if it did just get replaced, I strongly advise them to try and get with the buyer or the seller to get a copy of that roof redone or something so that they
right,
can
get some
submit that.
paperwork.
Yep, because not all carriers will pull the permit on when it was done last. And
Right. And
sometimes it
not all
takes a
cities
while.
need permits. Not all cities need permits either.
Exactly. So, that's what it really comes down to. So those things, and a lot of carriers, if I say, oh yeah, it's a new roof, it was put on in 2025, they're gonna want proof.
Wow. That's interesting. Anything else that you can think of that you can leave us with? Or do you think we covered it all?
Hmm. I think that is probably a good little synopsis. Look at your roofs, make sure that they're done every 20 years. We know that they are costly and stuff, but hey, it's got to get done.
And occupancy and have the correct occupancy.
Yes, occupancy is key, and that stems down to even too, you'll get people whose kids are moving out and they're like, what do we do now?
Right.
It's all sorts of different things. So
Right. That's so true. So if someone wants to get a hold of you directly, what's the best way to find you?
I would say you can either call me or email me. That would definitely be the easiest. You know me, I usually get back to you as soon as I can.
You are very
So
good.
phone number always the 248-554-1133. Otherwise, Lauren.Thompson@Goosehead.
Very perfect. Nice and easy to spell. Right. Well, I thank you so much for your time and for doing this with me. It was really,
Yeah, my
really important
pleasure.
that people hear it.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions later on and you just want a little tidbit, by all means, I'm always here to help throw some knowledge your way.
I appreciate that.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I'm Carri Goldring, and if you ever have any questions regarding mortgage, feel free to give me a call or send me a text message, 248-420-4524. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.